Welcome back to Behind the Screen. Today, we've got a theory that could change everything we know about Avengers Endgame. Every time we get a new teaser for Endgame, fans tear it apart frame by frame. Who will end up where? Why? What does it mean for the fate of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? But for all this detective work, there's a lot we don't know. We do know that the remaining Avengers and Guardian are going to meet up with Captain Marvel and wear some cool new suits. But will that be enough to defeat Thanos? And how do our heroes plan to undo the snap and bring everyone back? The answer might lie in the Soul Stone. In order to take the stone, you must lose that which you love. A soul for a soul. That's what Red Skull told Thanos on Vormir, right before he pushed Gamora to her doom and claimed the Soul Stone. This line is crucial to a new theory by StarHolly98 on the MCU Theories subreddit. StarHolly98 thinks that the word lose has a more vague meaning than what we first thought. Thanos took it to mean that he should off his adopted daughter, but perhaps it could mean a different kind of loss, a self-sacrifice. But before we get there, let's take a closer look at the relationship between Thanos and Gamora. Can we really call it love? While Infinity War tries to show us Thanos as a gentle father, we can't ignore Gamora's side of the story. After wiping her home planet of half its population, Thanos stole Gamora. Sure, he taught her a cute lesson about balance, but he did literally kidnap her.
Come, let me help you.
After that, he pit her against her siblings frequently. Not in the typical way siblings fight. Thanos literally made his children beat each other.
No! Are you kidding me?
You could argue that Gamora is exaggerating the situation. Maybe Thanos just had a strict way of training his children. Except we see the results of his tough love in Nebula. Her body is now a Frankenstein-esque mix of machinery. That's thanks to all the times Thanos ripped off a piece of her because she lost to Gamora. It's also worth taking a closer look at Thanos' other children, the Black Order. At first, they appear fiercely devoted to Thanos, but as the movie goes on, we get hints that they fear him more than anything.
Thanos requires your presence. Now!
We even get it plainly said by Ebony Maw. He worries about being punished by Thanos if he returns from Earth empty-handed. So even though Infinity War tries to tell us that Thanos cares, we shouldn't buy it. Yes, he believes he loves Gamora. He even sheds a tear for her, but in the end, she's expendable. Just like Nebula, just like the Black Order. They all exist as pawns to further his cause. That doesn't sound like real love. We don't trade lives, Captain America says, and yet Thanos would trade lives in an instant to achieve his goals. Whatever your definition of love is, that can't match up.
Return to me again empty-handed, and I will bathe the starways in your blood.
Thanos is too single-minded in his mission to truly love another being. Real love can be seen with other characters in the same movie. Scarlet Witch and Vision might have had a rushed relationship script-wise, but we can see that they genuinely care for one another. With the fate of everything in her hands, Wanda still hesitates to destroy Vision.
I can't.
That hesitation, born of love, is something we don't see in Thanos. He wastes no time in grabbing Gamora and tossing her over a cliff. Heck, Gamora even says it herself. No, this isn't love. She should know. The Guardians of the Galaxy movies are about love. About the weird families we make by choice. Now that Gamora has a family, she knows that her relationship with Thanos is not love. But if Thanos did not truly sacrifice something he truly loved, why did the Soul Stone appear? Doesn't its appearance prove that giving up Gamora was the right call? Not necessarily. The Soul Stone is known to be different from the other Infinity Stones. It hides itself, requiring a test before it comes to a worthy wielder. The other stones don't do this. They just manifest as objects of power anyone can grab. Captain Marvel even puts the Tesseract in a lunchbox. The test for the Soul Stone heavily implies that the stone has a mind of its own. It might not be fully sentient, but it has enough of a will to decide to test potential wielders. It also seems to be able to communicate with Red Skull. After all, he was somehow able to learn the exact rules of the stone despite being stranded on an empty planet. If the Soul Stone does have a will, that makes us rethink how certain events went down. The most obvious is Thanos' vision. Right after the snap, we see Thanos confronting a child Gamora in an orange plane. She asks him the cost of what he just did. His answer of everything has a lot of subtext to it.
Everything.
The whole scene does. For one, it gave us one of 2018's biggest memes. Also, we get the notion that Thanos just cares so much about Gamora, that she was his everything. We already argued why that's not true. More important is the question of where that vision came from. The heavy use of orange, the same color as the Soul Stone, implies that it came from the stone itself. But why would the stone be questioning Thanos if it already deemed him worthy of wielding it? Well, there are two possible answers. One, it was the spirit of Gamora herself that appeared to Thanos. Perhaps as the sacrifice, her spirit lingers on in the stone. This also supports the theory that all those lost in the snap also live on in the stone, that they're tucked away in some pocket dimension so that they can be brought back later. We already know there's a new Spider-Man movie, right? If Gamora is indeed part of the Soul Stone now, she would definitely want to haunt Thanos over what he's done. Her influence could even go further. She could have controlled who got affected by the snap to some degree. It would explain why enough Avengers were spared to keep up the fight. It could also explain why Rocket and Nebula survived. Rocket's tech expertise could be a huge asset in Endgame. He could maybe make his own gauntlet or some device to take the stones from Thanos. Nebula hates Thanos most of all and won't give up until he's defeated.
Well, hello, boys.
The other possibility is that the stone has its own will. Thanos did technically pass its test by sacrificing his daughter, so it appeared, but the stone might not be fully on board with his plan to wipe out half of all life. That's why it gave him a vision of Gamora to question his choices. Since the Soul Stone seems to have doubts about Thanos being its master, it could find another user. One who acts out of real love and not a misguided sense of purpose. It just so happens we have a whole team of heroes who are known to act selflessly. Whether it's Gamora in the stone or just its own will, they could be waiting for a more noble user. That could be the key to how the Avengers undo the snap and defeat Thanos. Of course, that nobility is dependent on true sacrifice. That brings us to the all-important question: which Avenger has the most to lose? The original theory by StarHolly98 suggests that Iron Man makes for the ideal sacrifice. The key to this is in Red Skull's wording.
It extracts a terrible price.
That brings us back to the beginning of the video. In order to take the stone, you must lose that which you love, a soul for a soul. We've covered why Thanos' version of this was not right. His sacrifice of Gamora was not a real sacrifice. It was less of a loss and more of a gain. Tony Stark, meanwhile, has been set up for a true sacrifice for 10 years. Tony's biggest enemy has often been his ego. He profited from weapons sales without guilt. He can't stop being Iron Man, almost costing him his relationship with Pepper. He created Ultron.
You're all killers.
We've also seen him trying to make up for his selfish acts. He flew through the portal with a missile in Avengers. He backed the Sokovia Accords out of a sense of responsibility, and he mentors Spider-Man in hopes that Peter will be better than him. This push and pull has been one of the defining aspects of Tony Stark. For every bit of selfishness, there's a moment of heroism. There's a certain poetry then in having him go out with one last act of heroic sacrifice, to finally sacrifice or lose what he loves most, himself. Maybe he takes a hit from Thanos in battle to save the others. Maybe he saves Pepper at the cost of his own life. Or maybe he even figures out the Soul Stone's rules and gives himself up on purpose. However it happens, there's a strong case to be made for Tony making the ultimate sacrifice. The MCU began with Iron Man, so this chapter could certainly end with him. On the other hand, we have our own thoughts about who will be sacrificed for Endgame. Our bets are on Captain America. We've already seen that Cap is just the type to put himself at risk for others without thought. He literally jumped on a grenade in the first movie. He made himself a criminal in order to save Bucky. Tony's sacrifice would carry meaning for his character, sure, but sacrifice is already built into Steve Rogers as a person. There's also the running theme with Cap in Infinity War that we don't trade lives. We would never willingly let anyone else on the team give up their lives, especially Tony. Not after they made up for what happened in Civil War. If the Avengers learn that someone needs to give up their soul for the Soul Stone, Steve would be the first one to volunteer.
We fight.
Finally, there's the less dramatic reason. The practical fact that Chris Evans' contract is apparently done after Endgame. The actor himself said as much. He even posted an emotional goodbye to the character of Cap on social media. The future of the MCU is certainly set up for a lack of Cap. With Bucky no longer brainwashed and Hydra relegated to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Cap's battles are over. It's time for newer faces like Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Captain Marvel to take the stage. There's also the announcement of the Disney Plus show Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's further evidence that the Captain America part of the MCU can now go on without Captain America. The only angle of Cap's story left open is his romance with Agent 13, and let's be honest, no one cares about that. Iron Man, meanwhile, still has to marry Pepper and watch over Spider-Man. The past few years have often proven that, even without Iron Man movies, Tony Stark is the heart of the MCU. Then again, Tony's unfinished business would make his sacrifice especially tragic. Really, losing either of these iconic heroes will be too much to bear. Unfortunately, it might be the only way to take the Soul Stone from Thanos and reverse the snap. A sacrifice born from giving up ego, from leaving behind the future that Tony promised Pepper.
I dreamt. We had a kid.
Or from Cap's desire to save his friends he fought with for 10 years. That's love, more so than anything Thanos felt for Gamora. Marvel Studios wants us to think that Thanos loved Gamora, but Star Holly 98 gives us a compelling theory that says otherwise. The Soul Stone really wants a wielder that is willing to make a true sacrifice. Endgame might hinge on our heroes doing just that, whatever it takes, right? Do you think Cap or Iron Man will make the ultimate sacrifice in Endgame? Let us know in the comments down below and hit the like button. And be sure to follow Behind the Screen for more content like this. All you gotta do is hit the link down below to be automatically subscribed.